Hello and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
Our goal with the Healthy Half Hour podcast is to be a resource in your toolbox for all things diet, exercise and healthy lifestyle related.
We'll be sharing our personal insights and experiences alongside research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for over the last 12 years.
The show is brought to you by Sunnyside Honey Pot, all things honey related. So if you want to check out things that we make from our bees, their wax and their honey, you go to sunnysidehoneypot.com, and also please feel free to visit the healthyhalfhourpodcast.com as well.
And without further ado, let's get on to today's show.
Should I say what day it is in case anybody's tracking?
No.
How long it is since we did the last one. But in our defence,
a month.
We do warn everybody that summertime our bees and our vegetables take over. So
yeah, and like we've said before, if we haven't got a lot to say, we won't say a lot. We're not just pumping content out for no reason. So
well, we do have a lot to say, but we just don't get a chance.
Time has been a bit of a
yeah. It's
so yeah, the last month, I don't know, we've I got a little older and we went to
you had a birthday
and we did a little bit of went for a couple of paddling trips and in the sun and did
hopefully
some
we'll
fishing.
Get another one. Another couple, hopefully.
Since July, the garden's blown up and everything's... We need some rain desperately, but so we're watering with everything. But again, that rain is better than just watering from the ground, even though we use a well and the aquifer underneath the house, a couple of hundred feet down there. I was looking at some research not long ago, and when you have thunderstorms, the ionization of the air due to the electrical charge actually cleaves nitrogen out of the air, and that goes into the water, and that's why water from rain always makes your plants grow well, because it's nitrogen rich when it comes down. So who knew?
Bit of useless information there.
Unless you're a gardener and you wonder why it grew better rather than watering it with a hose. So so apart from that, now we're starting to pull honey now, so everybody's doing their business. We had some drama in the bee yard not long ago with the one that we found. I think on the last podcast we were saying that we'd got a swarm.
Yeah. And
they decided they would look like they were going to swarm again. So I did what they call a false swarm, where I took the queen and some of the bees and put them in a separate box out of the way, and then the remaining colony then will make a new queen. And so we left it and expected to go back in and just see what was happening, and we had 5 queen cells in there. So they were just kind of hedging their bets as to which one was going to be the best, and it took a while. As they do, these things take time for the queens and stuff to grow. So I went in on Saturday and there she was, new queen. So I don't know whether she's been mated yet or whether she was a virgin queen. So there was couldn't see any eggs or larvae, so I'm assuming nothing's happened on that front. We had a windy day yesterday.
So we were hoping that she didn't go flying on her mating flight and then just can't get back.
Or it didn't happen, or so. I'll leave it a couple of days and we'll go and have a look, and hopefully she's successfully been mated and we can get some numbers, some young bees built up in that hive, because the more young bees you've got, the better chance you stand of making it through the winter. So aside from that, we're going to rock it today with... we've done sleep before, but we're going to get back to sleep today. Just again, there's always new stuff coming out, so we were looking at the past 100 podcasts and some of the things we need to go over. We kind of did fasting, which we revisited again, all the aspects of fasting and how it is. So I think, again, we're just going to cover stuff that kind of more stuff keeps coming to the light. And
just kind of like condensed stuff, really, because let's say people go back to the old podcasts and like sometimes we've covered sleep as part of something else. So I've put like a ton of notes together and gone through some of my stuff that, excuse me, like say just condense it all. So like say we just thought we'd revisit sleep and the thing... Getting back to sleep, yes. Yeah. So
that's my only pun. I'm going to shut up. Carry on. You're doing awesome already.
So being awake is actually catabolic. So catabolic means that we break things down. And what happens when we don't have much, when we're awake, then obviously we break things down and we fill our brain's trash can up in effect. And when we're asleep, it's actually anabolic. So anabolic means building things up and repairing systems and actually emptying that trash can. And in that repair mode, we actually will grow and rejuvenate our immune system, our skeletal system, and our muscular system. And being asleep actually will also help balance your hormones. It actually boosts your metabolism as well. It increases your physical energy, and it actually improves your brain function, because I said being asleep actually will empty any toxins and trash in that brain trash can. And I'm going to come back to explaining more about that in a bit, but we actually live in a world right now and in a culture where we don't actually value the importance of sleep. And people actually say I'll sleep when I'm dead. We sacrifice sleep in a bid to get more done. But the thing is, if you actually didn't sleep, you would die. So these people that say I'll sleep when I'm dead, well, if you don't sleep, then you will actually die. And there's actually something called, it's not a legitimate medical term, but it is used quite a lot by medical professionals and scientists. And it's actually called the Blue Death. And what it is, it's called the Blue Death because it's relevant to, typically, even though they don't wear blue uniforms anymore, I'm not sure what colour they wear, but the police, paramedics and emergency services typically used to wear blue uniforms. I guess some of them still do. But what would happen is the emergency services, police, paramedics, whatever, would actually push their body to the limit. So they would sacrifice sleep to perform their job. And what would happen is they're actually robbing their immune system of health, and they're actually working on that second wind, and they're just pushing their bodies to such a point that their immune system just completely trashes. And what happens, the reason it's called the Blue Death, is you actually find that a lot of the emergency services, police and whatever, will actually live almost on adrenaline and push their bodies to the point where when they do actually retire, their immune system's been robbed so much that a lot of these professionals actually die very quickly after they've actually retired. And that's why it's actually called the Blue Death, because they've robbed their immune system and robbed their body of any quality sleep. So
that's always the trouble with shifts, though, isn't it? It's that shift system, because humans aren't nocturnal. So we're actually supposed to sleep at night and be up in the waking hours. And again, we're going to touch on that in a bit. Again, especially with light and everything else. And that circadian rhythm is super important. And again, like Karen says, with the modern world right now, but a lot of times, years ago, when I worked in the UK in the trucking industry, it was 24 hours. It had to be, because there's not enough roads to actually let the traffic run. So a lot of the trucks ran at night. A lot of the warehouses opened at night. So we had to open at night. So, I work from 9:30 at night to 6:30 in the morning. And it's just really not good for your body, to the point, like I say, it's actually been classed as a carcinogenic.
Yeah, because shift work, it has been categorized as a class 2 carcinogen, because obviously of the negative health impacts actually on your body and really its negative impact on your overall health. But shift work actually disrupts your melatonin levels, and melatonin has a huge impact on sleep quality. And melatonin is actually one of the most powerful anti-cancer hormones that your body can actually produce by itself. So shift work being classified as a group 2 carcinogen, but managing your sleep quality is key if you are an actual shift worker. So like I say, you'll probably touch on that again as we go through the podcast.
I might not.
Oh, okay, you might not. So, but traditionally, I mentioned about our brain. Our brain actually needs glucose to function. So, what can happen if you have your sleep deprived for just as short a period as 24 hours? There's actually a reduction of 6% in glucose reaching the brain. And okay, we've got somebody come and announce himself. This is Booker, one of our cats. He's just come announces. So there's actually a reduction of 6% in glucose reaching our brain when we've been sleep deprived for just only 24 hours. And what does this actually mean? Well, actually it means it makes us dumber. Because typically...
That's my problem. I've got no glucose in my body.
And the reason being is that because our brains are typically designed to run on glucose, when that reservoir is actually depleted, our body actually tells our brain, okay, replenish those glucose stores. And so when your body's telling your brain to replenish glucose, it's not telling you to go and eat a carrot or a piece of broccoli. It's telling you to reach for the donuts, the pastries, the candy, and the sugar. And so, and that's like 6%, that's just over like just 24 hours. So again, I'm referencing back to that shift work. So if you're continually day after day after day, like sleep deprived, then a lot of people do suffer with weight gain when they do work shifts, and it's basically because your glucose like availability to your brain is actually being reduced, and it's just that physiological mechanism going like replace it, and obviously it's telling you to eat sugar. But the thing is,
so my brain nags me as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't nag you.
Oh. No, darling.
But the reduction in glucose availability to brain is not actually shared equally either, because you've got your parietal and your prefrontal cortex, and they can actually lose about 12 to 14% of those glucose stores when you're actually sleep deprived. And the parietal cortex and the prefrontal cortex, well, they're really important because like these areas of the brain are responsible for things like reasonings and making judgment calls, like for thinking. So, you know, you could get foggy brain, responsible for like decision making, social interaction. So like, you know, people when they're sleep deprived can be grumpy and miserable. So again, like those parts of the brain are responsible for like that social interaction. And one of the key factors is that those areas of the brain are actually responsible for differentiating between right and wrong. So we can actually make very bad decisions when we're actually sleep deprived. So I'm sure, like we mentioned this before when we've discussed sleep, that people make very bad decisions when they're drunk, but people can make ultimately just as bad decisions like when they're sleep deprived, because the prefrontal cortex and the parietal cortex are so depleted of like those available glucose stores. And like I said, like 12 to 14% as opposed to 6% when like you've just got that 24 hours.
And again, a lot of times the kind of the anti-low carb people, or the people that say that carnivore diets are bad for you, always kind of circle back around to this, saying, oh, you've got to eat starches and sugars and things like that because your brain needs sugar and it runs on sugar and it won't run solely on ketones and everything. And again, if that's kind of your shtick that you want to do that kind of diet, your body will actually break down proteins to make sugar. And also it can make sugar from fats too. So you don't necessarily need those carbs to make sugar. The body can make enough to make your brain run okay.
Well, yeah, but it does run on glucose and sugar. But like you say, your body can like actually make them from, you know,
enough.
Yeah, it can make enough. But it's just, you know, if those like, you know, available stores are depleted from that sleep deprivation, then you can create like a battle between like willpower and biology. And as well as
we all know who's going to win that.
Yeah, and as well as your parietal and prefrontal cortex losing glucose stores, actually what can happen, less than 7 hours of sleep a night will actually reduce oxygen flow to the brain, which again can lead to us making bad decisions. So that sleep deprivation and that depletion in glucose stores can like lead to us making bad decisions. But because if we don't get at least 7 hours sleep a night, then that oxygen flow to the brain can actually be decreased.
I've not got hypochondria, but you're basically describing me here.
And
grumpy,
yeah,
no sleep.
Exactly. And like one of our cats, Mr. Bink, as we've referred to him quite frequently, we don't normally leave him out at night, and we couldn't get him in the other night, and both of us had the worst night's sleep, lying there worrying about like where he was. So, because he sleeps between our pillows. And like both of us apparently kept, every time we rolled over awake and patting in between the pillows. So that was a bad night. And then we had a busy day on Sunday, didn't we? And like yesterday, we were just toast. But also one of the things with regard to sleep, the American Academy of Sleep and Medicine have actually found that poor quality sleep is actually equal to binge drinking and smoking pot. And it's actually found that students who have poor sleep habits actually do get worse marks in their studies. And
so they actually believe that the students weren't smoking pot and drinking at the same time as well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, obviously, the American Academy of Sleep and Medicine determine. And also, the other thing to take into consideration, like the younger population as well, if they lose as little as 1 hour sleep a night, they actually are at a higher risk of suicide, believe it or not. So it's like when I say that, going back to the beginning, like people underestimating like the value of sleep. And one of the things with poor sleep as well, it downregulates your body's ability to regulate insulin. So
that old chestnut.
Yeah, and what happens is that even if your liver's functioning fine, sleep deprivation. I can't talk today. So even if your liver's working perfectly fine, sleep deprivation can cause your pancreas to pump out sugar into your bloodstream, even when your blood sugar levels are already high, and even if you've like decided to follow a no or low sugar diet. So again, like one of the important factors to consider here is that sleep deprivation can disrupt. Oh, I didn't realise not to turn my phone off.
You couldn't turn anything off.
So it can downregulate your body's ability to regulate insulin. And so although you could be following, like you just said, like, keto diet, low carb, low sugar, whatever, but sleep deprivation can really disrupt that insulin regulation. And like I said, even if your liver's working properly, your pancreas can still keep pumping out insulin and sugar into your bloodstream, even when those blood sugar levels are staying high. Another aspect is sleep deprivation. There's two hormones, one called leptin and one called ghrelin. So what are they? What does leptin do?
Mm-hmm. Leptin tells you to stop eating, and ghrelin is in the stomach cells and tells you you're hungry.
Yeah, so sleep deprivation can decrease your leptin levels and increase your ghrelin levels. So when you don't get enough sleep, then those signals are not there to tell you to stop eating. So your ghrelin levels are increased, your leptin levels are decreased. And on average, people who are sleep deprived and have their leptin and ghrelin hormone levels disrupted, they'll take on an average of 300 more calories a day when they're sleep deprived. And so again, sleep deprivation can disrupt your hormones. And I said right at the beginning that sleep will help balance hormones, and this is two of the ones that are key. And so if your leptin and ghrelin levels are disrupted, then people often say well, why does poor sleep correlate to weight gain? And this is just one of them. And again, previously I just said about the pumping out sugar, even when your liver's working properly.
And that's the thing. I mean, the liver does hundreds of different things, and the liver does a lot of its regenerative processes in the night. So if you're not asleep in the night when it's doing those processes, then these processes can be curbed, and also that can be affected by nighttime eating and a few other things. And I think I've said before on the podcast before, again, when we work nights, we used to have our lunch, if you want to call it, at kind of 2:30 or 3 a.m. And if one of the techs was out or something was happening that we needed finishing quickly, we'd sometimes let it drag on till like 4 a.m. or something like that, and we'd have lunch at 4 a.m.
You'd all have lunch together, wouldn't you?
4 to 4:30. And you looked around the lunchroom at 4:15, everybody's head was hanging. You just couldn't, if you actually sat down at that time. And that's kind of 4 a.m. is the body's lowest ebb, I guess, when the regenerative processes are going and your energy's low. And again, you should be asleep at that point, because that's what your body's...
That's when your melatonin levels are at their highest.
Yeah, and that's what needs to happen. And the guy, again, you just couldn't keep your eyes open at that time. It was so tough. But if you were active and driving or moving around or something, then it was okay. You could push through it. But just if you sat down and then just kind of let your lids dropped, yeah, you were just done. Nodding dogs all around.
Yeah. And remember I actually said that... right at the beginning, well, I talked about like your brain's like trash can, and like
no, I don't remember that bit.
and sleep being anabolic and being awake being catabolic. Well, your body's actually got a cellular waste management system. It's called the lymphatic system, and you're probably like familiar with it. And it's responsible for eliminating waste and toxins so that you keep your body healthy. But the lymphatic system doesn't include the brain, and that's because the brain is a closed system and it's controlled by the blood-brain barrier. But the brain has its own little army of cellular bouncers, so to speak, and it's a unique waste disposal system called the glymphatic system. So they added a G onto the beginning of it.
Sneaky.
Because of the glial system. But anyway, I'm not going to go into like the... mechanics of that, but
please do.
No, because I'm talking enough as it is. So when you're away, your brain will build up trash.
Mine does on a daily basis.
So from thinking, from learning, making decisions.
No, none of those.
Yeah. So all those processes are actually building up toxins and waste technically in your brain. And obviously all that trash needs emptying. And I know that we've referenced it before that like your brain equates to, is it 20%?
2% of your body weight.
2% of your body weight, but uses
20% of the energy.
20% of your calories. So when you come out of an exam, you're exhausted because your brain has just been so active and used so many calories. So the glymphatic system actually empties the trash can when you're asleep. And during sleep, the glymphatic system actually becomes 10 times more active than it is when you're awake. And simultaneously as well, your brain cells will actually shrink by 60% while you're asleep to make that waste removal more efficient.
I don't think mine ever came back.
So it just keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so like that glymphatic system, like I say, like another reason why sleep is so important, because like you need that sleep time so all those toxins and that trash in that brain trash can be emptied. And so I did a little snippet video on my website a while ago, and I think I titled it saying that, you know, why it's good that your brain cells are shrinking. And like I say, they do. They'll like reduce in size overnight while you're asleep so that like trash can be removed. It's a bit like when we were in England like years and years ago visiting, and we stopped with your cousin and her husband, didn't we? And you were listening to the Glass Crushers at 3 a.m. in the morning in London, and it was just like, you know, so it's obviously this certain times during the 24-hour period where you actually remove trash. So obviously that was the Glass
Central London, that's the only time you can drive a truck around there. Apart from that, they'll be sat waiting for traffic all day, so they have to do it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, because nobody's allowed to stop on the red lines or go down certain streets, but that's another thing. And one of the things that I'm sure a lot of people have heard, and I know that we've covered it before, is that there's that thing where, you shouldn't eat after 7:00 at night, or
true.
you shouldn't eat like within so many hours. And I know you've been looking at some stuff today, but one of the things with what time of night or how close before bed you eat is cortisol related, because whenever you eat anything, your cortisol levels will rise. And cortisol, we know, should be high in the morning because it's your internal coffee pot. So if your cortisol levels rise excessively before you go to bed, then obviously it's going to keep you awake, and that's not what you want. And obviously, this whole podcast is talking about, how beneficial sleep is and how important it is. But what'll happen when you're sleep deprived and like you eat anything, like your cortisol levels, if you're at a healthy weight, will rise by about 5%, which is not really a big number. But if you are not at a healthy weight or overweight and obese, then when you eat, your cortisol levels could actually rise by over 51%. So that's kind of old wives' tale, I guess, of don't eat before 2 hours before you go to bed, 3 hours before you go to bed, or after a certain time of night. It is, you've got to factor in obviously your current weight. So again, like say with you with like your nights and stuff, or other people where their jobs and they literally work to early evening, come home, and their lifestyle and profession dictates that they really have to eat within a couple of hours. But if like your cortisol levels are not being disrupted that much because you're at a healthy weight, then it's not that detrimental to your sleep. But if you are overweight or obese, then your cortisol levels, eating that close to you going to bed, are actually going to raise by up to 51%. So then you're going to have disrupted sleep.
And the thing you've got to factor into that as well is food quality.
Yeah.
So again, if you're eating highly processed food or refined foods, and again, refined sugars and things, then that's going to have an effect. Alcohol is something else that's going to have an effect, as well as caffeine. Some people not so much with the caffeine, but again, everything has an effect, and these things can sometimes layer up. And when they do layer up, then you'll be kind of lying there awake and wondering why. And then you're thinking, maybe that coffee I had at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or that extra glass of wine or half a glass of wine I had. And even, again, I thought you touched that thing off. Even when, with low carb dieting, low carb diets can upset like people's cortisol levels and can hamper people's sleep. And I mean, we've often recommended to women, especially in their 40s, again, just as those hormonal changes start to happen, that maybe them eating some starches in the evening time would actually help them have a better night's sleep, than rather than maybe having that crash and then insulin and adrenaline being pushed out to try and prop the body up and get some glucose rolling around the system.
And you mentioned alcohol, like women actually do metabolize alcohol faster than men.
Yeah, of course they do.
Well, we do, but what happens is like
not by the gallon.
Yeah, if a woman has a glass of wine, like it will send her to sleep faster, but because women metabolize like alcohol faster, it will cause them to wake up like sooner.
And snore more.
And snore more.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Like, listeners don't.
See, even I've learnt something today.
Yeah.
So again, just with that circadian rhythm we were talking about earlier on, one of the things, again, like we're saying, is the dark light cycle. And again, as we've spoke before about light is really changed our habits and what we do and what time of the day we do things. So again, 300 years ago, I mean, all you had was the light pretty much of a candle or a fire, but now you've got something on the end of a switch, and electric light bulbs more often than not contain light through the full spectrum. And that full spectrum of light does have an effect on your eyes. So what you're actually looking for is some light later in the evening, either dimmed down or that doesn't contain the blue light element. And a lot of times you can, especially on phones and computers now, you can actually get apps that cut the blue light out of those devices. which doesn't give you kind of the carte blanche to, oh, I can just sit and look at my phone all night because there's no blue light. You're still getting that signal of there is light. So again, things need to be dimmed down a little bit, especially before you go to bed. And one of the bad things, again, people say, oh, I need the TV on to sleep. And they sit there watching the TV and it's just more light. It's just another signal. And I mean, you may not have the TV on for a couple of weeks and it may take a little bit more time, but more often than not, after you've got used to not having it, you'll sleep better than what you did with it. Because again, there's that background noise all the time and your brain is kind of really, people think their brain sleeps at night, but it's actually probably more active at night than when it is in the daytime. Like Karen says, emptying the trash can and filing everything away from what you did in the daytime. And it's been proven, like if you do some studies or you're reading a book or something, you're more likely to retain it if you read it or study it closer to bedtime than what you would first thing in the morning. Because again, it's fresh in the filing system and those things are filed away and that's where we kind of want to put them. So again, that blue light does make a difference. Circadian rhythm does make a difference. And again, we need to probably talk some more about things we can do to improve our sleep, because we've obviously spoke a lot today, well, you have, a lot about kind of what disrupted sleep can do to us negatively. And again, we've kind of gone through this today just to put it back on your radar again. And people kind of don't put a lot of importance into a good night's sleep. And we kind of just wanted to do the kind of the overview today of why it is really important to get sleep, and again start picking away at stuff. So probably next podcast, really, we need to just go over ways to improve the quality of your sleep and things you can do.
Yeah, and like just to like reiterate, with regard to the shift work, when I used to teach the nutrition and fitness for shift workers course, and one of the things that shift workers can do to help with regard to getting some better quality sleep is, if you're on a night shift and like you're coming home in the morning and daylight, is to actually wear orange tinted shades glasses, because it'll start to trick your brain in and filtering those like blue light signals and start tricking your brain and helping you to sleep better. So there's this like one of the things with regard to shift work that's like really useful when it comes to, like you say, helping to get to sleep when you're fighting against the circadian rhythm and that clock.
Yes, I think next one we'll tackle that. We'll promise it won't make it a month.
No, it won't be a month.
We'll want to get on with this one, because again, they tie together and people will be listening to this thinking, okay, I know all the crap now, I need to know the whys and the whens. My brother Chris and Heather are driving around Italy, Austria and Germany and whatever at the minute, so they're going to need something to listen to. They'll probably drive off the end of a cliff after listening to this. Oh, these two are boring. But
they love listening to us.
Okay, so they tell you. Until next time, Karen and Richard signing off. Tell your friends if you love the podcast. Tell us if you don't. And stick us a review somewhere if you can. Follow us on Healthy Half Hour Podcast on Facebook. Send us some questions. Send us anything you want, and we will do the next one on sleep stuff some more. Talk to you then.
That's all we have time for today, but we do hope that you join us on our next show. If you'd like to contribute to an upcoming episode with a topic, a question, or even if you'd like to be a guest on our show, then shoot us an email to questions@healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, or you can actually leave us a message on our Facebook or Instagram pages. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by Sunnyside Honeypot and 7dayshred.com. If you like the show, tell your friends, and if you didn't, tell us and we'll work on it for you. Thanks again for listening.